a day for myself. I am an old man now, but I still remember the days when I was a strict teacher. Every morning I walked to school and taught with a firm voice. I believed that discipline was the key to learning. I spent long hours in the classroom, guiding my students with strict rules and high expectations. My lessons were clear and my words were strong, yet inside I felt a loneliness that I could not ignore. I worked so hard every day that I forgot to live for myself. I rarely took a moment to enjoy a quiet cup of tea or a walk in the park. My focus was only on my students and the future I hoped to shape for them. I gave all my time to teaching and never allowed myself a break. Despite the respect I earned, I felt empty and tired deep inside. One morning, as I sat by the window watching the world go by, I noticed the bright sunlight and the gentle sway of the trees. I began to wonder what life would be like if I took one day just for me. I imagined a day with no lesson plans, no strict schedule, and no pressure. Just a day to feel free, to smile without worry, and to enjoy the simple beauty around me. That thought grew in my mind and heart. I realized that even though I had given so much to others, I had never cared for my own happiness. I decided that day I would change my life. I would set aside one day to live for myself. I would go to the park, listen to the birds, and feel the warmth of the sun on my face. I longed to see the world beyond the walls of the school, to find a small piece of joy that I had always denied myself. And so, with a new spark in my heart, I left the school early that day and walked toward the park. I took a deep breath and stepped out into the bright new world, ready to begin a day that belonged only to me. I walked into the park and felt the soft grass under my feet. The trees swayed gently and birds sang sweet songs. I sat on a bench and looked at the clear blue sky. For the first time in many years, I felt calm and free. I strolled along a winding path and saw a small pond with water that shimmered in the sunlight. I listened to the gentle sound of the water and felt my worries slowly fade away. I thought about the simple joys of life and realized how important it is to take time for oneself. I met an old friend on another bench. He smiled and said, "Taking time for yourself is very important." His kind words filled me with hope. We talked about the beauty of nature and the peace a quiet day can bring. His voice was soft, and his words helped ease my heavy heart. I sat on the lawn and closed my eyes to listen to the wind. I took a deep breath, enjoying the fresh air that filled my lungs. In that moment, I felt grateful for the quiet and simple beauty around me. I knew that this day was my new start. As the sun began to set, I promised myself that I would always find time for moments like these. This day in the park had given me a new strength and a clear mind. I left the park feeling happy, knowing that I had rediscovered a piece of my soul. After leaving the park, I walked slowly back home. The cool air and gentle sounds of nature still echoed in my mind. I felt a calm that I had not known in many years. My heart was light, and I thought about the moments I had enjoyed. I knew that even one day for myself could change my life. When I reached home, I sat in my old study. I opened a small notebook and began to write. I wrote about the beauty of the park, the bright sky, and the kind friend who spoke with me. I remembered how the wind and the soft sounds of birds had filled me with hope. Writing gave me peace and helped me understand my feelings. That evening, I made a simple dinner for myself. I ate slowly, savouring each bite, and then I looked out the window at the darkening sky. I thought of my busy past and the many days I had spent in strict routines. Now, I realised, life held a quiet joy in the little moments. Later, I called an old friend from my teaching days. We spoke on the phone for a long time about memories and dreams. His gentle words reminded me that I was not alone. Even though I had given so much to others, it was time to give a little to myself. Before I went to sleep that night, I closed my eyes and thanked the day. I promised myself to take more time for me, to find peace in the simple moments of life. My heart felt full, and I knew that this small change would light my way forward. That night, I sat in my quiet room, reflecting on the day I had just experienced. I thought about the simple joy of walking in the park and the warmth of the sun and wind on my face. For the first time in many years, I had taken a day just for myself. It was a new feeling, a mix of peace and hope that I had long forgotten. I opened my notebook again, not to write strict lessons or work plans, but to write my thoughts and feelings. I wrote about the sound of birds, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the kind words of a stranger who made me smile. I felt that I was learning something important about life, that even a strict teacher must care for his own heart. The quiet moments in the park had shown me that happiness lies in the small things. I remembered how I used to rush to school every day, always busy, always strict. But today, I realised, life needed balance. I decided I would set aside a little time every week just for myself, to enjoy nature and let my mind wander. In the morning, I felt a lightness I had not known in years. I sipped my tea slowly and planned to share my experience with my friends and colleagues. I wanted them to understand that even in a life filled with duties, one must find moments of peace. I was ready to live differently, more gently, more fully. As I looked out the window, the soft light of dawn filled the room. I knew that this day for myself had changed me. I would remember it as the beginning of a new chapter, where my heart was free to find joy in the simplest moments. The next morning, I walked to school feeling different. The world seemed brighter, the air fresher. I noticed the small things, the laughter of children, the way the trees swayed in the wind, the soft light of the sun. It was as if I had been asleep for years and had just woken up. When I entered the classroom, my students greeted me as always, but today I smiled more. I listened more. I noticed how each child had their own way of learning, their own struggles, their own dreams. I had always been a strict teacher, believing that discipline was the key to success. But now I saw that kindness and patience were just as important. During the lesson, a boy made a mistake while reading. Normally, I would correct him quickly. But today, I waited. I let him try again. When he finally got it right, his face lit up with pride. In that moment, I realized something. I had spent years teaching, but I had forgotten to inspire. At lunchtime, I sat with another teacher and shared my thoughts. I always thought being strict made me a good teacher, I said, but yesterday I took a day for myself and now I see things differently. Maybe I need to change the way I teach. My colleague smiled. It's never too late to change, she said. Sometimes we forget that learning is not just for students. Teachers must learn too. As I walked home that evening, I felt lighter. My heart was full of new thoughts, new dreams. I was still the same person, but something inside me had shifted. I had learned a valuable lesson, not just about teaching, but about life. That evening, I returned home with a light heart. I sat on the front steps and watched the sunset over the city. The sky was painted in soft pinks and oranges, and I felt a warmth I had not known in many years. I thought about the day I had taken for myself and how it had changed me. I then opened my notebook and wrote down my thoughts. I wrote about the park, the kind stranger, and the peaceful moments. I wrote about how I had learned that life is not only about work and rules, but also about enjoying simple pleasures. I felt a new strength in my words. Later, as I prepared a small dinner, I remembered the laughter of my students and the busy noise of the classroom. But now I understood that to teach others well, I must first care for myself. I promised myself to take time for rest and reflection. Before I went to bed, I sat by my window once more and looked at the stars. They shone brightly, reminding me that hope and peace can always be found if we only pause and look up. I smiled softly, feeling grateful for that one day that had given me a new vision of life. I closed my eyes, knowing that my life as a teacher and as a man had changed forever. I was ready to face the next day with kindness, patience, and a renewed heart.